What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Red and Gold Standard Podcast. As always, my name is Zach Hernandez, and I am joined by my co-host, Matt Llewellyn, and our guy, Mike Andrews of Nothing But Niners. We got a great show planned for you guys this evening. Before I toss it over to my guys, if you're tuning in on X, make sure you hit like and repost the post. If you're tuning in on YouTube, hit like and subscribe on the channel and comment your thoughts. We want to hear them all. Now that I got that out of the way, Matt, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty good, Zach. Went and got some dinner today. Just had a pretty good day hanging out with the little one, so can't complain. Except, the usual suspects are at it again. I guess, 4 years in a row now we're going to talk about training camp interceptions and all this stupid shit. So beyond that, though, it's great. At least we're talking about football again.
Yeah. Never ends. It never ends. Mike, how you doing this evening?
So far, so good. Made it back in time for the show. Race against the clock, so to speak. And I'm excited, man. This will be my third or fourth show tonight. So I'm excited to have some fun, man. Let's get it.
Damn. All right. Let's do it. All right. So the first topic on tonight's agenda is Brock Purdy showing up on the NFL Top 100, ranking 28th. Did that surprise either of you? Mike?
Go ahead, Mike.
28th is a bit high out of all 100 players in the NFL. Yeah. I mean, man, that's it's like a little tongue in cheek. I guess if you look at the value of quarterbacks overall in the NFL, I do have Brock Purdy like in the top 10-ish. So I guess maybe that's not that high when you think about it that way and you base it on positional value. So maybe I shouldn't be surprised. I guess what I'm surprised about is like, when do these shows air? Because they just did a whole list of them yesterday. So like, is this a daily thing? Is this like every Monday and Tuesday, or is it like what? Like, how does this work?
It's a very good question that I have no idea. Daily, maybe? I don't know. I have no idea. If you guys know in the chat, let us know. But 28th, Matt, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, and let's be perfectly clear about this. The NFL Top 100 is voted on by the players. So I take more stock in this than you would from the usual suspects who's like, Brock Purdy's the 22nd best quarterback in the NFL. Even Caleb Williams is better than him, even though Caleb Williams has never played an NFL down. It just goes to show the disconnect between the players on the field and the people who just sit behind the keyboard all day. I think I'm with Mike. It's surprising to see him in the top 30. But I think the more egregious one is actually Deebo Samuel being ranked 30th and Brandon Ayuk being ranked 66th. I would have flopped them for last year's production, to be honest. Yeah. And the 49ers still have some to go. I would imagine they have 4 more left. I would say Trent Williams, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, and
Fred.
And Fred Warner. Yeah. 5 more then, because Nick Bosa as well. Are probably left on this list.
They showed Bosa tonight.
Okay.
I swear I saw him earlier.
Dang, that's wild.
Yeah.
Because even that's like, I don't know that you could have Warner ranked over Bosa, but
based off of last year, I wouldn't be surprised. Based off of last year, maybe. Warner's highlight is going to be that like play where he dove over the Rams guy and like speared him. Dude, so that's going to shoot him up.
It was sick.
Yeah.
So Bosa, they were back to back. Bosa's 27th.
Okay.
27th.
And I mean, in the end of it, San Francisco's going to have 8 in the top 100, which is, I mean, that's pretty good, man. So can't complain about that. I just think that it's interesting where the players fall on Brock Purdy versus where the media falls on Brock Purdy. And as I alluded to in the open, it's hilarious to watch the usual suspects talk about training camp interceptions, which is like, I couldn't even tell you something I'm more tired of. Maybe pulled hamstrings I'm more tired of, but training camp interceptions is like a close second.
Yeah. I was surprised, but then again, when I sat and thought about it, I kind of thought he was an MVP finalist. He was the leading candidate going into late into the season So maybe it's not that surprising. I agree with you, Matt. Brandon Ayuk being 66th and Debo being 30th, Brock Purdy being 28th. That's very interesting to me. I think it really does kind of validate Brock Purdy's success, though, because so much of what we see in kind of the casual fan talking space online is like, oh, he's carried by the system. Oh, he's carried by an elite team. Oh, and this and that. Well, this is how other players in the NFL view him. And clearly they have a very high opinion on him. I'm sure you guys all know how the top 100 works, but if not, players sit down, literally have a list and write out their top 100s, and then they take an aggregate of all of the lists and come up with how they had them ranked on average. So on average, NFL players had him ranked 28th. It's very impressive for a player. Again, I'm not going to go into all of the platitudes that we talked about with Brock Purdy. Second season, coming off an injury, last pick, yada, yada, yada. Super impressive. And I think the sky is the limit. And that kind of leads into my next topic, still on Brock Purdy. Where do you guys think he'll rank on this list next year? And how much do you think that will affect his contract going into next offseason? What would have to occur, Mike, I'll start with you, for him to rank, say, top 15, move up 13 spots minimum? What would have to occur to see that happening?
3 consecutive seasons, this one being the third, with 3 or 4 losses, period. Then all of a sudden you're talking about Patrick Mahomes type winning percentages, Tom Brady type winning percentages, Peyton Manning in his prime type winning percentages. This is Russell Wilson in his prime, right? The streaks of 13 and 14 wins. That's when all of a sudden these guys start saying, you know what, we got to stop saying that this guy's not it. And they got to start giving him his props, right? So the first year, it's like, oh, come on, man. This was the third string guy. He came in, like, the team is clearly loaded. This year, it's like, all right, he bounced back from the injury. Really, really cool to see. They kind of picked up where they left off. You do it again this year when you know for a fact now everyone's gunning for you. Maybe, just maybe, there was a little bit of doubt in the minds of some of the viewers and some of the players around the NFL, like Brock Purdy's going to fall off. That sophomore slump is going to hit him hard this year. Talking about this past season, right? Now all of a sudden, it's all gone. Everyone's expecting you to improve. Your first full off season in 49ers training camp, getting all the reps and everything. You're not throwing towels now. It's been all ball all year. They're talking about how much better he looks and things like that, as far as physically, I mean. So he's going to go for it again. And you come in here and you get 13 or 14 wins, all of a sudden, Brock Purdy cracks that top 15.
I agree with you 100%. I think that if we see something similar to what we just saw, I was trying to find his final season rankings on X, but this is pretty close. This is going into, I think, December. Let me see when RSF. Yeah, December 12th. So what would that be? Right after the second. Let me change my screen here. Sorry about that. Right after the second Seahawks game, if my math is correct. And these are the rankings for that. He was first in passer rating at 116.9, first in yards per attempt at 9.9, first in completion percentage of 70.2, first in QBR 74.7, tied for second in touchdown passes at 25, third at yards passing 35.53. Again, this is December 12th. I'm sure I could have found the final season, but this was the first that came up as I was talking. And it was late enough into the season. Obviously, this was before his Monday night debacle against the Ravens, what was really just bad because of the amount of interceptions that added to his season total. But I think if we see something similar to what we just saw, he's got to be top 15. If not, then I think kind of everything we've been told about playing quarterback in the NFL is then I have to think it's a lie. If anybody could just step in, right, and all they need is a good team, then playing quarterback maybe isn't the hardest job in the world. So I do believe with the premise that it is the hardest job in the world. So therefore, if we have now basically 2 3/4 seasons worth of really, really elite level play from a player, I think that tends to prove that he's an elite player. Matt, what's your take on this? What would need to occur to see him move up?
I mean, it's just going to be more of the same, right? You would hope that with a full off season, not being injured, not recovering from a UCL injury that it was allegedly rehabbing into November, you would see a little extra step up. I mean, if he's 28 right now, then, obviously he set the 49ers record for passing last year and did it in 16 games because remember, they did hold him out of the week 17 game. He didn't play at all. You just want to see that. Even if it's incremental improvement, any improvement is something there that's going to keep him there. And I think that there are still those that are a little bit hesitant because of the system, because of the talent that's here, to fully back Brock Purdy. I think another year of production, like Mike is talking about, whether that's statistically and wins and losses, then it's tough to deny him at that point. Because you show me a great quarterback who is able to win without good pieces around him. All these quarterbacks, crappy coaches are rarely get to a Super Bowl, let alone win one. The only one that I can think of is maybe like Frank Reich. And that because he had good coordinators. It's very rare that or you see bad quarterbacks going to Super Bowls a lot. He just needs a little bit more time, right? It's the whole elite argument. Is Brock Purdy elite? He played like an elite quarterback last year, but I don't know if you can call him an elite quarterback until he stacks those things, right? Everybody has to make their first all-star team or their first Pro Bowl at some point. It's being the perennial Pro Bowler, the perennial all-star that gets you those flowers. So if he can produce at a level similar or even better than what he did last year, then obviously he's going to climb up in these lists. And I think a lot of the doubters, even more so than have already kind of quieted down this year, will go away next year for sure.
Yeah. Again, I urge people to just take a second and pause and reflect on what we've seen. It seems like just yesterday, the three of us, Mike, I might be wrong. You might not even have been with the show back then. It could have just been Matt and I. Let me take you guys back down memory lane. It is 2021, I believe. Was that Trey Lance's rookie year, 2021? Or am I thinking, 2021? And it's, I want to say week 3 or 4, the 49ers are getting whooped by the Seahawks. Jimmy either gets injured or Kyle just pulls him. Trey Lance comes in, leads the 49ers down for a touchdown drive, which I believe is that one where they just left Deebo Samuel wide open. Trey hits him for a touchdown, and then he's like driving down the field to tie it, but then he ends up fumbling. I forget how it works. But we came and I sat right here, and we were talking about how promising of a performance that was from Trey Lance. And holy shit, do the 49ers really have their quarterback of the future? Because that was so promising. That seems like it was just yesterday. And now we're here talking about basically 2 seasons worth of elite play from a quarterback that nobody saw coming. Nobody saw taking the league by storm. Nobody saw stealing the job from not only Jimmy Garoppolo, but Trey Lance as well. Even when he came in, stealing the job from fucking Nate Sudfeld, who the 49ers gave like $2 million guaranteed to be their backup quarterback. He didn't even make the final roster because they were so impressed with Brock Purdy. So really just think of like where we are, because just yesterday we were hoping the 49ers had the guy out of like any of the 3 they had on the roster. Please, just one of them be good. And now here we are, going to be debating, is he worth $60 million or $58 million or $61 million or whatever the cap's going to be in 2025 when it's time to extend him. I think 49ers fans, for some reason, what I'm seeing online is like that reality hasn't hit them yet. And they're still debating just how good he is. And it's like, whatever how good he is, I would argue he's good enough. And there's absolutely no way you let this kid out the door and hope you roll the dice and get somebody even close to his caliber and his character. It always takes you back to that Family Guy meme where Peter wins that prize and it's a boat. And then they're like, or you can get this mystery box. And Lois is like, I don't know, Peter, just take the boat.
And he's like, what if there's another boat in there?
Yeah, the mystery box could be anything. It could even be a new boat. Like, you have the boat. Brock Purdy is the boat. Just take the boat. Don't take the mystery box. Don't try and trade him. Don't let him walk and hope you get comp picks in return. just take the boat, and the boat is Brock Purdy. Just sign him, deal with the rest later. Also, Ian Sharp comments, Purdy has yet to lose to Seattle. Do you guys remember just yesterday when the 49ers couldn't beat Seattle to save their lives? I'm pretty sure Jimmy only beat them once, and that was that 2019 thriller in Seattle for the number 1 seed. Other than that, the 49ers couldn't get that monkey off their back. Not only has Purdy yet to lose to Seattle, he's yet to lose in the division, if my memory serves correct. So he's built to win in the NFC West. And if there wasn't for a little slimy little fuck named Patrick Mahomes, he would be built to win in the NFL, like, period. But because Patrick Mahomes exists, he's got to get just a bit better and take the team to the next level. Any other thoughts here before we move on off Purdy?
Yeah, I would just like to say that it's interesting that we're at a point now where I don't know if you guys remember in 2022, we're getting ready and it's like, oh man, this is Trey Lance's year. Like, it's finally gonna be Trey Lance time. We're finally gonna be able to see what he did. They slow rolled like the Jimmy Garoppolo thing. It was like kind of awkward. And then, they had just signed Nate Sudfeld to a 1-year deal worth a fully guaranteed $2 million. And then before the end of camp, Nate Sudfeld's gone. And they're sitting there at, with Brock Purdy. And you're just like, that's kind of interesting. Maybe Brock Purdy was like, I mean, we know Nate Sudfeld sucks, so maybe they're just like rolling with the young guy or whatever. Lo and behold, Miami Dolphins game comes around and it was no looking back for that kid. And it's so interesting what an actual crapshoot all sports are, really. Baseball is probably the biggest crapshoot. I think it's even bigger than football. Just because there's so many rounds, so many players, so many teams, so many levels to professional baseball. But the NFL, I think, is a very close second in the fact that, what's the percentage of first rounders that hit? It's something like 25 or 30%, and it's even lower on quarterbacks. I mean, we look at the 2021 quarterback draft and we were like, dude, this is going to be an all-time draft. And even the alleged generational best prospect since Andrew Luck quarterback and Trevor Lawrence, he got a second contract, but everybody's looking at that contract going like, man, I don't know about that. There's those quarterback A, quarterback B things where it's very similar numbers, and quarterback A is Trevor Lawrence, quarterback B is Mac Jones, and Mac Jones is now backing up Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. It's just such an odd thing that we thought, we were all excited. We all remember, right? Perry, you son of a bitch. Like, we were super excited. Trey Lance got drafted. We wanted this guy. We didn't want that guy. And then this guy that nobody was talking about is the one that actually ends up being really good. A lot of people hammer Kyle Shanahan about, why didn't you take a look at Patrick Mahomes? That's because nobody thought Patrick Mahomes was going to be Patrick Mahomes. Coming out of Texas Tech, he was viewed as a project. He got to work with Andy Reid and sit behind a pros pro and Alex Smith, and then he took the NFL by storm in an unexpected way. I don't think anybody, when the Kansas City Chiefs drafted Patrick Mahomes, would be like, Mahomes is going to be as good as he is. Nobody thought that. And if they're telling you that, they're trying to sell you some bullshit. It's so interesting how these things work. And we've seen time and time again, the early round pick is trash. And then a mid-round pick or an undrafted guy at any position can really be the guy that you're looking for. So it's exciting, and it's cool to see. I do want to shout out, God, I need to look up his video, because there was one guy on YouTube prior to the draft that was talking that Brock Purdy could be a starter in the NFL. See if I can find the video. Oh, here we go. It was, I can put it in the chat, Zach. It's Tank Sports, and he wrote this 2 years ago, and it was a video, the quarterback nobody is talking about. The caption of the video says, Brock Purdy is a rookie quarterback who's getting no love this draft season. I've watched a ton of film and saw some impressive traits that I think translate to the NFL. And he was absolutely right. So, really cool stuff. And so I do want to give that guy a shout out. This is the video, the Tank Sports video. And again, if you look at the timestamps on the video, it does coincide with draft season 2 years ago. So really cool that he was able to kind of see that when not a lot of other people were talking about it. So that's really
crazy.
Cool. Yeah,
that is crazy.
Goes through the whole thing. Oh, Zach, you got to buy that. You got to buy that. You got to buy that YouTube Premium, my brother. I haven't seen an ad on my YouTube videos in forever, unless
That's
baked into the
video. I'll put it in the chat. What's funny is I do have YouTube. I'm not logged in on this computer. Here's the video in the chat if you guys want to go check it out. After this, don't leave the show to go watch it. Go watch it after. All right, Mike, any final thoughts on Purdy, on his contract, on whatever you want anything related to him?
Not necessarily. I'm just really excited for the young man's growth. I'm happy that the Niners have a guy that they believe in. Kyle Shanahan having all the confidence in him. It's a thing that we've been waiting for since Kyle got here. And it seems like now that Kyle's finally confident in someone, the fans are the ones that are like, maybe we shouldn't be so high on him, right? And it's like, guys, if Kyle believes in him, it's time for us to just sit back and enjoy the show while we got it. And so I agree with everything that was said prior to this. So, and one thing that Matt said when we first started talking about it, it's like, and Zach too, you both said along the lines of he's good enough for this team right now, right? Like, it's like you have to be on the team that you're on, period. Who knows what's going to happen if talent starts to go away, but that doesn't mean that the talent won't get replaced, right? There was no Brandon Ayuk type player on this roster before Brandon Ayuk was on this roster. You know what I mean? So the draft is there for a reason. Free agency is there for a reason. As long as the 49ers continue to supplement the talent that leaves, we'll be okay. And Brock Purdy is good enough with the way the team is built right now. He can only play on the team that he's on. So we got to stop with all the hypotheticals and just look at what is and appreciate what is while we're here.
Well said. I was trying to find Tim Kawakami had Kyle Shanahan on recently and then Brock Purdy on after that. There was a quote from Kyle that I thought was very interesting, and it was something along the lines of, because he was asking him, are you really prepared to pay him like $60 million a year? And he's like, I don't really view it like that. I just view it, if that's the going rate for a good quarterback, then that's the going rate. Like, what can you do about it? You have no control over it. Either you pay him or you go in back to the drawing board, try and find another one. So it really doesn't sound like Kyle's keen on trying to find another quarterback. So will be interesting to see what happens after this season. And for those that aren't blocked by Tim K, you should go check out his profile. He's got some good insight from Brock Purdy. You know what? I'll read this real quick and then we'll move on to the next subject since I have it up. Let me switch the screen. Okay. This is from today with Purdy. He said, when did you have an idea that you and this offense might fit well? I think pretty early on, just learning my rookie year at camp, just how everything tied together, man. Every play has a certain drop back in timing and certain hitches to routes and concepts. I loved it and I love it. I still do. Just the way I think, everything that I do in life, just everything has to time up right and well. So when we go into football, just learning this offense, I'm like, shoot, this allows me to be on time. If I get this coverage, I'm going to take the second hitch backside, and it just times up well, and it's consistent. And that's what I love. It sort of has given me some rules and guidelines to playing quarterback, but at the same time, like, there's opportunities where I can still be myself, scramble drills or on the run and play action pass. I can still have some freedom with how I play, not just so robotic. I'm the kind of guy where I need those guidelines of what to do. It helps me be efficient. I think if you play and run our offense the way Kyle and Greasy coach it and look back, you can be such an efficient quarterback. I think that's what's coming down to playing NFL quarterback is all about. If you can make the same decisions over and over and keep your team on the field, you're going to win a lot of games doing that. My rookie year in camp, just learning this offense, I was like, oh, shoot, this is pretty nice. So that's the Kyle Shanahan offense that, quarterback friendly, all these pundits talk about. And it just seems like Brock Purdy fit in there perfectly. And yeah, 49ers throwback said Brock Purdy wants to be dominant. I did see that quote as well. He doesn't want to be good. He doesn't want to be above average. He wants to be dominant. He wants to be Tom Brady-esque in the way that he just completely owns the league. Brock, that starts with Patrick Mahomes, brother. So please, once you get on that, then you will be well on your way to being dominant. Did you guys have anything to add to this little extra for him? If not, we can move on. Just wanted to ask before I move.
Do you guys think people were upset that he said Tom Brady-esque instead of Joe Montana-esque?
He's like 22. I mean, maybe he's older. He was a 4-year starter at Iowa State, so maybe he's like 25.
if you remember too, it's not just all Tom Brady love either, because there was that quote when Brock Purdy was being interviewed by Tim Kawakami, where he was talking about Kyle Shanahan going to him and telling him that hey, when he was rehabbing from his elbow, hey, we're thinking about bringing in Tom Brady, and Brock Purdy's like, yeah, that's cool for the team. He's like, but like I beat that dude, so like why can't I? We went to the NFC Championship game with me. That's this should be mine. I think it's just a mindset. And we all know, I mean, the stories of Joe Cool are one thing, right? We know Joe Montana, cool under pressure. Hey, there's John Candy. We know that one. But if you're talking about Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant level of competitiveness in the NFL, we know that's Tom Brady. And I feel like, Brock Purdy has that in him. That's the mindset that Brock Purdy has. He comes out, when he says, yeah, like it's cool that we're winning games. He's like, but I want to be blowing teams out in this fourth quarter. Like we need to like really put teams away. That's a level of competitiveness that it's just like, it's not enough to just win. Like I want to bully you. I want to push you around. And I think that that's a competitive thing that, that there's a famous Michael Jordan story where from The Last Dance, where he came back and played with, Bill Wennington and some of those people. And Bill Wennington's like, what are you doing back here? Like we don't make a lot of money. Like, why don't you go play with those guys? He's like, I'm done with those guys. Now I want your money in my pocket. That's kind of like, that's the thing, man. Like these hyper competitive people, they end up, it's a sickness. It really is a sickness. And if Brock Purdy has that, then that's, bad for him and his family, but great for us. So I'll take it.
Uh-oh, Mike's muted.
There we go. I think it's a really good quote that Matt just mentioned about the whole, like, I want to be dominant in the fourth quarter where I go out, lead one drive, and then I can sit the rest of the game type of thing. I believe it was along the lines of what he was saying, right? Like, I don't want to just go out there and win close games. Like, I want to be dominating these teams. The reason I say that is because I always look for a difference between the head coach or the offensive play caller and the quarterback, right? I want to see their own personality start to shine. And you hear him, Zach read this long quote and showed it on the screen about how like the system and how they teach it, right? And then he talks about his little bit of freedoms in there. But what to Matt's point, like I think that the best part of all of that is like Kyle, I think we all feel gets a little conservative if his team has a 10-point lead in like the last 7 minutes. It's like, all right, we can just come out here and run and try to eat some clock off. And if we don't get the first down, we'll punt it and trust our defense. Brock doesn't necessarily have that mentality. We need someone that's not necessarily going to challenge Kyle because, the system is the system. And obviously Brock believes in the system, trusts the system. But it's like, I want to know that he wants to do more than just be okay with a close win. I think that we all have said, like, where's that killer instinct? When is Kyle going to dial it up and put his foot on these other opponents' necks? And it sounds like Brock Purdy has that oomph in him. So that was really, really good to hear.
It's almost like, don't worry, Kyle, I got you. You don't want to take, you don't want to put your foot on their head. I'll do it for you. Don't worry. I got you. And that comes across with, I think that's it plays a lot of into our previous topic, why players have voted him the way that they do, right? It's one thing for us to watch the games, but watching the receiver thing on Netflix, you really get a little bit of behind the scenes in Brock Purdy, and you could just see that little amped upness with how he celebrates things, with how, he gets pumped up for things. It's that little extra that, even when Jimmy was playing well, there was always like, yeah, man, it feels good to go out there and like, blah, blah, blah. And it was just this milquetoast, soggy, just, you know what I mean? Like just not good, man. Even in that receiver show, Devontae Adams tells him something. He's like, all right, cool. Say less. Like, what does that even mean, dude?
Devontae's like, no, I need to say more. I'm trying to tell you. You're not understanding, Jimmy.
Yeah. And that's why Devontae Adams admits in that show, yeah, I signed off on Jimmy Garoppolo getting benched. Yeah. Man, I'll tell you what, players know who's a dog and who's not. And it's why I don't think you're ever going to hear someone who plays with Brock, who's no longer on the team, is going to come out and call Brock a bitch like Jimmy Garoppolo's ex-teammates did.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's going to happen.
I think with Brock, and then we'll move on. The first thing I noticed when he came in is he's always looking to push the ball down the field. If there's that 7 to 8 yard out open, he'll pass it up for the 15 to 16 yard, 15, 17 yard out that's also open. And whereas maybe the other quarterback, maybe at least just because I'm used to Jimmy, he would take the sure thing, that 7, 8 yards. Because, hey, what quarterback doesn't want a 99% 7 to 8 yard gain on like first down? All of them do. But Brock's like, nah, fuck that. I see, Ayuk's 10 yards behind you, and he's open enough for me to fit this ball in there. So that aggressiveness, I would love to see more of. And I think, Matt, to add on to your point about how maybe he, and both of your guys' point, how he kind of takes Kyle Shanahan's, maybe gets a little shy and a little too conservative when they do have a lead. Think back to this last Thanksgiving game against Seattle. That beautiful pass that he fit in between 3 defenders to Ayuk when the game kind of got close in the third quarter. And Kyle's like, that pass has never gone to Ayuk in practice. It's not the way it's drawn up. Like, that's like a 7-yard comeback route to Kittle on the outside or whatever the hell it's supposed to be. And he found Ayuk in the middle and fit this ball in there. He's like, I was so impressed. I couldn't believe he hit that. That's Brock. And that's that aggressiveness taking over because he understood he could feel the game switching. He could feel momentum shifting. And he was like, I could fit this ball in there, and he did it. So I think that encapsulates perfectly that level of aggressiveness that you definitely need to have as a quarterback. And to be honest, maybe you need to have a little more when you're playing with somebody like Kyle who can get a little too comfortable with a very short lead, very small lead. I know Grant Cohn's been parading that stat of like 7 teams that have had a double-digit lead in the Super Bowl. Of the 7, Kyle Shanahan's been on 4 of them. He hasn't been the head coach of 4 of them, obviously. But the 2 with the 49ers, unfortunately, that's true. He has been the coach, and they've had double-digit leads. So it's unfortunate. Hopefully we see Brock Purdy's aggressiveness take over.
Did you guys see the Kyle Juszczyk quote when he was talking about, people say we can't win big games? He's like, what are you talking about? We were down, you're down 17-0 to, Green Bay or whatever, 24-7 or whatever in the NFC Championship game or whatever it was. It's like, those are big games. It's like, just because the Super Bowl, is and I agree with that to an extent. And people talking about, if he couldn't get it done like this time, when is he ever going to get it done? And people always talking about, look at Andy Reid, man. Like, Andy Reid's like a great coach. You go, blah. They forget Andy Reid had 11 years in Philadelphia and went to 1 Super Bowl. He didn't win it. And then when he came to Kansas City, it was a couple of years before he got Patrick Mahomes. And even with Patrick Mahomes, it took him a couple of years to win a Super Bowl. Like, Kyle just, if Brock Purdy is that guy, Kyle just got him. And they probably would have went to the Super Bowl when he blew his elbow out. And they did go to the Super Bowl last year. This is all natural progression. They can get back to the Super Bowl. Mainly because, honestly, last year, I didn't think the roster was super strong. If I'm being completely honest with you, I thought that there were a lot of downgrades. I was disappointed with some of the draft picks they made. I didn't like the fact, and because it's Jake Moody and it's this and that. Obviously, they tried to do something with Drake Jackson, who, by the way, looks like a very big miss for them. But this year was the first year where I think the vast majority of Niners fans almost had no complaints about the draft. And from the reports of training camp, almost all of these, like Dominic Puny looks good. Ricky Pearsall's crispy and running routes, and he's back there maybe potentially returning punts. You got Malik Mustafa, you got Renardo Green, all making plays and doing these things. This is the first draft where a lot of people are happy. And for me, I just think the roster got better, with the Leonard Floyd deal. I know that Dre Greenlaw's out, but then they get Devondre Campbell from Green Bay to kind of at least, if not replace, because obviously Dre Greenlaw is a great player, but at least shore up some of that weakness there. And you got guys coming back. So you got Talanoa Hufanga coming back. You had Jair Brown, who looks really good in camp. And you got all these people. I just think the roster's in a better spot. Year 2 of Jake Moody, who, has worked through a lot of those rookie troubles and did really well for the most part after some early slip-ups. The missed extra point in the Super Bowl notwithstanding. But, I think they're in a better spot than they were. And if you think that Brock Purdy's the guy, then this is just the natural progression of this team. And this could be one of the last years that they have the window open. But these people that were like, last year was their year, they're not going to get back there. We don't know that. Again, how many years? I think the Chiefs have been in the Super Bowl for the last like 4 years or something like that. It's
three of the last four.
3 of the last 4 Super Bowls. And there were times that I looked at Kansas City's team, even last year when they didn't get out hot, or the year before when they
lost to Vegas on Christmas.
Right. And you're just like, ugh.
Yeah.
But again, the 49ers have a very talented roster. If they can just stay healthy and you expect that these guys to improve a little bit, you sign Trent Williams, you sign BA, get these guys back in the building. I don't see why they can't make another run. And by the way, once Kyle wins it, then all these people have nothing else to go on, and they'll all have to shut the fuck up. And I can't wait for that to happen, to be honest.
Real quick, Mike, and I'll toss it to you, Matt. Your point that you never know when they're going to win it, which team. May I remind you, folks, that the 16-0 New England Patriots didn't win it, but the next year, like the 10-6 Patriots won it. It's like it's not always the best team or best version of a team that goes on to win it all. Like everything has to go perfectly. Everything has to go against the team that you're playing. Was it that were the Giants 9-7 that year or 10-6? Then they just caught fire in the playoffs, and they beat an undefeated Patriots team in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, if David Tyree doesn't have the stick 'em on, you know what I'm saying, then they don't win. Speaking of Andy Reid, if Terrell Owens doesn't break his fibula earlier in the season, and he's fully up to speed, because remember, he came back only a few weeks after that happened to play in that Super Bowl, right? And if Donovan McNabb's not up chucking on the grass, then maybe they win that game, and get a little bit more out of there. So you never know. It's all circumstance, right? If Pete Carroll runs the ball instead of throwing a slant, maybe Tom Brady doesn't win that Super Bowl. If Danny Amendola doesn't make one of the most ridiculous, Julian Edelman make one of the most ridiculous catches in Super Bowl history, do they come back from 28-3? And so you're like, if Jimmy hits the deep ball to a wide open guy, I mean, people want to talk about Kyle Shanahan in the big games or whatever, but the 3 most famous ones that he has, it's literally one play that separates him from victory and from defeat in a lot of these circumstances. So, it's a game of inches. And for as much as people want to talk about, the best team should win, man, luck plays a huge factor in all of this. Again, last year, how much bad luck is it that, you get Christian McCaffrey fumbling on the opening drive, and you get Dre Greenlaw just getting pumped up to run back out on the field, just pops his Achilles, just not doing anything. Those are things that make a great team become more susceptible to losing, because I feel like if Dre Greenlaw didn't go down, then we're not talking about the 49ers not being able to win the big game, because that was a huge loss. A huge loss, because it didn't seem like they could get Kansas City off the field in a timely manner after that fact.
Even if Greenlaw goes down at the end, if Burford just picks up Chris Jones, the Niners probably still win that game. If Ray doesn't try and pick up a bouncing football, he just falls on it. The 49ers had held Kansas City to field goals. The only touchdown they scored in regulation was the next play after that botched punt return or whatever it was. Mike, I'm sorry, I cut you off a few minutes ago. Was there something no? Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm saying it's fine. You said that there was a stat that Grant keeps throwing out there to kind of like shit on Kyle.
Let me try and find it. I'm pretty sure it was 7 teams that have lost the Super Bowl after having a double-digit lead, and Kyle Shanahan has been involved. I swear it was 4, but now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it was 3.
Yes, I was going to say I can't think of the 4th one. I know the one against the Patriots, and the 28-3, and then the 2 here. I can't think of a 4th one to save my life. That's what I was trying to find out what it was, and it's fine. It's just his way of trying to sprinkle some hate on Kyle, but I definitely can't think of a 4th one. I don't know that Kyle's ever been a coordinator or even position coach on another Super Bowl team before. So that's what I was just trying to figure out what it was. But it's not a big deal.
I think that was his first. So he got his first NFL job with Tampa Bay in 2004, 2005. But I don't think they made the Super Bowl in 2004 and 2005. And then he was with Houston, who's never been to a Super Bowl. Washington, which hasn't been to a Super Bowl since 1992 or 91, excuse me. And then he was in Cleveland, and then Atlanta and San Francisco.
Oh, okay. So I think the stat is A Shanahan. So he's including Mike Shanahan's 1988.
Jesus.
Okay,
Christ.
that's a stupid
Okay.
stat.
But three of them are Kyle. One of them is Mike.
That's
dumb.
wild.
Okay.
That's dumb.
By the way, Matt, you brought up the 49ers rookie class, and I don't know if you guys saw this going viral. It sucks, but I had to watch it because it is fucking hilarious. And shout out to Gregory Fan, which is now Robert Beal Fan Club. This is a clip of Ricky Pearsall running routes side by side with none other than Drewski. Not Drewski, man. I just had to share it because this is hilarious to me. All right. I have the video here from Kyle Juszczyk, but I feel like we've kind of moved on from that. The next topic I have on tonight's show, which I feel like relates directly to the 49ers, even though this isn't about them. DJ Moore got extended. So let me pull up the tweet from ESPN. Change the view here so you guys can actually see it. I don't know why StreamYard wants to go like super tiny anytime he brings something up. Like, come on, man. All right. DJ Moore, per Adam Schefter, got a 4-year, $110 million extension that includes $82.6 million guaranteed. Moore's 4-year, $110 million extension with Chicago is the largest deal in Bears franchise history. That's just sad, but I guess when you think of the Bears, who have they extended in the last decade, I wouldn't even know. So my question to you, and I saw, I'm forgetting who said it, but they're like a cap guy that's on social media was talking about how this may prove to Ayuk that the 49ers were not being fair with their negotiations. He did not delve any further into the topic, into why he said that. But when I first saw this, I was like, oh shit, this is going to drive the average down. The average here is what, 27.5 or something like that for 4 years, 110. We're not seeing 33, 34, whatever the hell it was before. Mike, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on this, and how does this impact BA?
No, this actually, in my opinion, helps Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk is significantly better as far as a wide receiver goes than DJ Moore. I don't know that DJ Moore is necessarily the wide receiver one, even on that team. And that's 75% guaranteed. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but that is a hell of a contract. The Niners really have to step it up if they want to keep Brandon Ayuk. If anything, this might make Brandon Ayuk out of the range of the 49ers. I understand what you're saying as far as APY, like average per year, but this is still a very, very good contract for a wide receiver too. This is up there with the Jalen Waddle, who if it weren't for if it weren't for Tyreek Hill being on that team, would be the number one wide receiver on the team. Jalen Waddle would be a number one wide receiver on 25 to 28 other NFL teams. He just happens to be on a team with Tyreek Hill. So these are the numbers. This is Kyle. One of you guys mentioned. I think it was Zach mentioned, like Kyle saying, I don't care about paying Purdy $60 million. That's the going rate. That's the going rate. We're seeing what the going rate is for a wide receiver one on a good team. There's nothing that you can argue about.
Can I ask you a question?
Please.
Who is the Bears' number one receiver?
Keenan Allen, maybe.
No.
Wait. So you're
DJ Moore.
It's
DJ Moore.
You're talking about moving forward. He's not the number one receiver.
Yes,
because he has been since he got there.
Yep.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Just want to make sure we're in agreement over that.
Yeah.
But who's been the 49ers' number one wide receiver? It's been Ayuk. He's the guy with the back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons and all that stuff, right? Like, don't confuse weapon with wide receiver. The going rate for a wide receiver one is the going rate. And sure. I just don't know that. I mean, so listen, here there's two ways to look at a contract for players. It's total value of the contract and then total guarantees. 75% is really, really high. So if the Niners are going to try to lowball Ayuk with an offer, it's still got to be 75% or higher now. So you still are going to be looking at at least 75 million, 80 million guaranteed for Brandon Ayuk. I just don't think that it hurts his negotiation tactics.
I would say that I think this helps the 49ers because statistically speaking, DJ Moore has been better than Brandon Ayuk over the last 4 years. Including last season where he had more receiving yards and more touchdowns than Brandon Ayuk.
And significantly more targets and receptions.
Okay. The average is very similar career-wise for yards per catch. And by the way, that's with Justin Fields throwing him the ball. And not much talent around you because the Bears were terrible. So it's all but going back to the 2022 season where he had some injuries and his rookie season in 2018 are the only 2 years that DJ Moore did not have 1,000 yards. So, and by the way, not only 1,000 yards, 1,100 yards is his floor besides his rookie season and getting hurt in 2022. I think the numbers are very comparable. And so I'm not saying that one is better than the other and circumstances are different. But to me, the 49ers can present this statistically, this stat sheet to Brandon Ayuk and be like, look, this guy is pretty much the only weapon on this Bears team. Everybody knew it was coming. And we know that Brock Purdy's better than Justin Fields. So if we were, it's one of those things where if you put DJ Moore on the 49ers, he would probably have that production, if not a little better or be similar to BA. I think that they're very comparable. And I think that helps the 49ers. Now, Pretty Ricky, I don't know. Again, there's reliability issues there in my opinion, but people tell me he's a reliable source. The potential CeeDee Lamb deal, which is also comparable to Ayuk, could be the thing that screws things up because Pretty Ricky was talking about an AAV of $34 million. That would be I think that's the last domino, to be honest. I don't think that this necessarily helps Brandon Ayuk. I think a CeeDee Lamb deal actually helps Brandon Ayuk because they're in the same draft class.
So then let's take that for what you said, right?
Sure.
What would happen if the Niners are trying to use this contract against, I'm saying against for a lack of a better term, Brandon Ayuk? Wouldn't they still have to beat it because Ayuk is now signing after him? Isn't that the way it works? It's like with Trent Williams got the contract after Bakhtiari, right? It was like 100,000 more total on the contract. It was $0.1 million more. They would still have to beat that number. And so if the offer that leaked was true, 25, 26 million, Ayuk was right to not take that and say, I could get 28 per year.
Sure, but I don't think
got 27.5.
I don't think 28 prices the 49ers out. I think 30-31 does.
Yeah. Agreed.
And I always my number was always 28-29 is what I thought Ayuk would end up at. And I think that this just helps, my argument that 28-29 is going to be something similar. Whereas I think if that guy Pretty Ricky is correct and CeeDee Lamb signs for 31 or whatever, again, the stats, but then again, I don't know because CeeDee Lamb has significantly outproduced Brandon Ayuk in their careers so far. So it'll be interesting to see. I think that this gets Brandon Ayuk a little bit closer to getting done. But again, they always like to wait till the last minute to do these things. Which the only part of me that hates that, to be honest, is the fact that as we saw with Bosa and some other players, is that they need the training camp reps. Bosa wasn't even the same until after the bye week when he actually took off. We were talking about, I know, Mike, you were talking about, he gets paid. Now he's playing like shit, and was able to absolutely play really well in the second half of the season and actually looked like Bosa after that. But these training camp reps are very, very important, and taking those away from a player because of a contract dispute, that's where I think the 49ers are playing a little bit with fire, particularly when we see that, hamstring injuries and all this stuff happen when you just suddenly try to dial up intensity. So hopefully they get it done sooner rather than later. Hopefully this was the domino that they needed to really go back to the table in earnest and have an honest negotiation about what's BA's value to the 49ers versus what BA needs to be realistic about in terms of his value in the market for wide receivers and go from there. So if they can get it done because of this deal, all the better. I still think that Brandon's going to wait for the CeeDee Lamb deal to kind of make a choice there.
The only reason why I was so encouraged by this deal is we've seen them just keep going up, 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 up. And this is the first one that was like not a record-setting deal, and obviously CD is to follow, and there are rumors out there and reports that he's going to get a record-setting deal. Or is it record-setting? Will it still be under Justin Jefferson? I'm forgetting what JJ got, but it would be north of 30, and this is the first time we've seen a receiver of Ayuk's caliber get under 30, sub 30, which is very promising to me because just like Matt said, I think that brings that divide a little closer. Mike, I think you made a good point in that he is vindicated in the sense of why would I have taken 26? But you also brought up 100 grand more that Trent got. That's the make it or break. He just has to edge DJ Moore's contract by a bit. And I think the Bears were smart in giving him 82 million guaranteed. The 49ers could make those numbers work, and then both sides are happy. We're only giving you 130 or 127 total, whatever the number works out to. We're happy with that, and you're happy because you're getting a large percentage of that guaranteed. So I think this kind of bridges the divide a little bit, in my opinion. Matt, did you say that?
Yeah, one of the things, and Melissa's bringing it up too, that I think is important here is that it's guaranteed money that this contract has. So you look at 110, that's for 4 years. That's like, pretty comparable to what, Jalen Waddle took or whatever for one less year. But the guaranteed money is there. And I think that that's more important nowadays because again, we're talking about, are you really going to see the last year of that contract when all your guaranteed money's up? That becomes the restructure, that becomes the void, that becomes this, that, and the other thing. They rarely get to the end. The guaranteed money is what's the most important to the players. And so, yes, does he want to edge out the DJ Moore contract? Absolutely. But I guarantee you right now that his number is whatever the number is. I need more than that 82.6 guaranteed. I need like 85 guaranteed or 86 guaranteed rather than 82 and change. So I think that's the new calculus on this deal is the guaranteed money because these players never see the end of their contract as it's originally written. It's always extended or restructured or stretched out. And that's literally all players from Patrick Mahomes on down. The contracts always change, but the guarantee is the guarantee. And so I think that that's more important overall for Brandon Ayuk at this point.
Mike, any thoughts? What? No. David says Debo admitted the year he held out hurt his readiness, ultimately hurt his production that season. That's correct. So I think this is a positive sign. Like I said last show, I still think a deal is done before the start of the season. Are either of you any more or less concerned about Trent Williams since last week when we did a show? Still holding out, still wants more money. Are you guys still under the impression it'll get done? Not too worried about it?
Trent Williams should get the deal done this year. I mean, this week. This deal should be being announced any minute now. And like when I say that, it's because the Niners need it, right? It's not like they're just gonna the salary cap is gonna stay the same. Any reworking of this deal, Parag and John are going to make sure that it creates more cap space, which should alleviate whatever is holding them back from giving Ayuk what he's looking for. It's going to be the domino effect that will help even with Brock's negotiations next year. And so the Niners should be looking forward to it. Trent should be looking forward to it. Ayuk should be looking for it. Brock Purdy should be looking forward to it. It just helps the team overall. His cap hits are his cap hits. The dead money is the dead money. You can rework all of that. Make sure that Trent retires a 49er. You give him a contract with some phantom years going to the age of 42 or whatever the hell it is that you got to make it be so that he's happy and he walks away with the guaranteed money. And that's where it is, and there's the comment right there, right? Christian McCaffrey even he was the highest paid running back in the NFL at that point, and it was like, yeah, but I got no guarantees. Do right by me. I've been doing right by you. Ayuk can say the same thing. Trent Williams can say the same thing. And so this is what these guys are going to come in here and do. Those guys, what all three of them have in common is 13 plus games a season. So, the Niners have to go out there and do that, and they know that the production will be there if they choose to utilize said players, right? Christian McCaffrey doesn't put up these phenomenal numbers that he puts up if the Niners use more of a rotation. It's not an option. It's not like one of those things. Well, what would he do with less touches? Would he have fresher legs and all that stuff? He needs the volume to get to those numbers that he gets to. Where we see a guy like Ayuk who had similar numbers, and if I'm not mistaken, it was 20 less receptions than what Moore had, and the numbers were off by less than 50 yards or some shit like that, right? I don't remember, and it was 1 touchdown difference. It was something similar. I don't know which one of you guys shared that screen, but it wasn't a massive difference for those two guys. But the big difference was the total number of targets. I don't remember what the receptions difference was, but the targets was the vast difference there. 20, yeah, 21.
31 targets for 21 extra. Honestly, that tracks if you're looking at quarterback completion percentages and average completion percentage in the NFL. That accounts for that number right there because it's about 66%.
Yeah. So I like that. I mean, it's just saying like Ayuk's camp can't sit there and say, "Look at my total yards." No, look at what their argument is going to be. Look at what I'm doing every time you give me an opportunity. Yeah. It's not my fault. It's not my player's fault, the person that I represent, that you guys choose to only throw him the ball 6 times a game. That's not his fault, So that's what they're going to say over and over. So I like this for Brandon Ayuk. And now, if we can keep the number down in total, right? If we can sit here and say, hey, we don't need to give him $140 million over 4 years, cool, right? And by the way, you asked the question of, with the 34 million, I think Matt asked the question, with the 34 million for CD Lamb be whatever. No, because Justin Jefferson's getting 35 a year. His is 35 a year. I don't think Ayuk is looking for that kind of money. I don't think Ayuk. I think Ayuk knows he is not the caliber of a player that Justin Jefferson is, mainly because there's not many other weapons on that Vikings team, right? So Ayuk has to keep that in mind. His camp has to keep that in mind. Let's just get the guarantees. Let's get the money going, and let's get this out the way so we can go in here and resume, pick up where we left off, so to speak.
Very well said. The last topic I have for tonight, and Matt will be back with us soon, so he's going to have to catch up, but it is about the newest 49ers coach, Brandon Staley, is a defensive assistant / assistant head coach, whatever his title officially is. But I love that Kyle does this thing where he does bring in, former head coaches that have the experience and adds them to his coaching staff. So I'm going to play this clip courtesy of KNBR, and this is Diamador Lenore sharing his thoughts on Brandon Staley.
Came over this offseason. Brandon,
let me change it to 1 second.
Staley also came over this offseason. I saw some clips of you getting in some work with him. What's that been like so far?
He's a genius. It's like having Kyle on defense. Just the knowledge that he brings to the room and how much guys respect him, respect his word, when he speaks. It's a blessing for him to be here with us.
Brandon Staley also.
So that's the first clip that kind of caught my eye. But there are also clips going around of him being very, very hands-on with the DBs. Let me play this one here. This is courtesy of John Chapman, the guy John. But you see him going with the DBs, kind of showing them how to get that shove off the line, jam them at the line, which is very important to mess up that timing with quarterback and receiver. There was another one I saw of him working with Lenore, I thought, directly and kind of showing him the same thing. How much of an impact, Mike, do you think Brandon Staley will have? Do you think that this is one of those things that people like me are just kind of hyping up in the offseason that doesn't really amount to anything? If I remember correctly, there wasn't too much of this going around about Steve Wilkes last year. Not to throw Steve Wilkes under the bus or trash him, because I did think he was a good coach. He just didn't work out here. No hate to Steve Wilkes. But how much of an impact do you think he'll have, and how much does actually being a former head coach actually bring to the table when you're now taking a reduced role as just like an assistant coach, a defensive assistant, whatever his title actually is? I should probably looked it up before I started the segment, but
I thought it was assistant head coach. I could be wrong about that, and we'll take a look and get that cleared up. But we have to remember what got him the head coaching job in the first place. He was on the defensive side of the ball. It wasn't about being an offensive genius or anything like that. And you don't need another offensive genius on this roster when you have Kyle Shanahan. This guy has 6 or 7 teams now with head coaches, branches from people who have worked directly with and learned from Kyle Shanahan. So you don't need that. What you do need, though, is if you're not going to get a guy like Bill Belichick, which we heard that Kyle made the offer to, it's a courtesy phone call like, hey, Bill, I love and respect you. Would love to have you on this team as whatever position you want it to be. These are Kyle's words, right? Bill kindly declined, said, I'm going to take a year off. I'm going to sit back and relax, maybe do some consulting, but I'm not going to join your roster. So what does he do? He just appoints a guy already on the staff and say, hey, Brandon, I want to bring you in here. What do you think about being a defensive coordinator? Now, if I'm Brandon, I'm going to say, yeah, listen, I saw what you guys just did to Steve Wilks. I'm not going to take the defensive coordinator position, but put me on the team. I'll work with the defense. I'll help out, and I'll give my insights where I can be as much of a help to you and the rest of the team as I can be. And now you're starting to hear and see the difference that he's making, working with the DBs and the secondary guys. And you hear a guy like Diamador Lenore, who has been here for 3 years already, saying it's like having Kyle, but on the defensive side of the ball. And you've never heard anyone say that Kyle doesn't understand offense. In fact, when you talk to offensive players, they praise Kyle for saying the way that he understands defenses makes our job on the offensive side of the ball so much easier. It's making them commit to X, Y, and Z so we can take advantage of it, right? So then now the flip side is that what Brandon Staley's doing? Is Brandon Staley so good at the defensive side of the ball? It's knowing what the opposing offenses are going to do. You know what I mean? And it's all positive. It's really, really good praise. I loved hearing that from Demo today. When I actually read it, I didn't even see that video that you sent, but I did hear the same exact thing. It's nothing but positivity, and from someone who was a rising star in the 49ers secondary. So that's what I like to see right there. Yeah.
This is from Diamador Lenore's Instagram story. It's a post of the SF Niners post talking about Brandon Staley coached up the CBs. Coach me up then, dog. Or coach me up then, coach. My dog. And 100 emojis. So his official title is assistant head coach / defense. So okay. I guess defensive assistant head coach. But I think this is super positive. I'm excited to see how his role actually shapes up with the 49ers. The players seem to love him, especially Diamador Lenore, who, my God, is he the most fucking locked in player on this team right now? All I've seen this dude for the past 5 months is work. He's not with all the bullshit that comes off the field. He seems like he is on it. Matt, we were talking about Brandon Staley, how the players seem to be reacting really well to him. And I asked Mike, how much of an impact do you think we'll actually see that translate in the season? Or is this just some off-season BS hype that I'm buying into? What do you think?
I think that this is going to be a classic case of coaches who got a head coaching job and failed miserably, but for whatever reason, they stick as coordinators and stick in their specific wheelhouse. So I know that it wasn't because players hated Brandon Staley that he didn't make it in Los Angeles with the Chargers. It was more of an oversight thing. And again, people forget that when you go from a coordinator to head coach, you don't get to, unless you're a complete psychopath like Kyle Shanahan, provide all of this input to your normal side of the ball, right? You have to be, it's like going from being a specialist to a manager, right? You start managing things, and then you have to pay a little less attention to the thing that got you to the dance to begin with. And I think that Staley getting back to being on the defense with the secondary is what his bread and butter was prior. So I think that this is something to be optimistic about for sure. But I think at the beginning of last season as well, I think that people were really into Steve Wilks as a coach as well. So the results will bear out on the field. But I think it's a good sign that people are reaching out and making it known, hey, we like Brandon Staley.
Especially young and up and coming, leaders and stars on the defense. Deommodore Lenoir has kind of been his biggest fan in his camp coming out. Melissa commented, love to get Mike's thoughts on the no Bosa versus Trent Williams again. And if we could maybe see our Hive Bros on a possible 53-man roster prediction show, we'll definitely get that done. But it'll be probably at the end of August once the third week of preseason is coming to an end. We'll get our predictions out there, or maybe it'll be before the third week so we can get ahead of the cuts. I don't remember how quickly the cuts happened after that last game. Mike,
I think it's the next week. I think it's the following week that they have to be down.
So we have some time.
Yeah.
Mike, Alyssa wanted your thoughts. No Bosa against Trent Williams yet again. Does that bum you out? But does that affect Bosa? Last year he had the contract. Now he's dealing with Trent getting the contract. Iron sharpens iron. His counterpart isn't here to sharpen. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. You definitely want to see that in camp. You want to see some one-on-ones. You want to see how they fare against each other. But the truth of the matter is I just don't know how much of that we would have seen even if Trent was in camp. Maybe a couple of reps here or there. But if I'm the 49ers, if you think that Nick Bosa is the most polished defensive end that you already have, I'm going to put the guys behind him up against the best tackle in the NFL, right? I want those guys to take steps to getting closer to Bosa's level, closer to Bosa's stature. And so you may have seen it a handful of times throughout this training camp, but it should be the other guys really learning from the big guy. And the one time that we do know that it did happen, people were asking how much do you talk to Bosa. They were asking Trent how much do you talk to him. And he's like, yeah, he asked a couple of questions. We pick each other's minds and we go from there. That's what you want to hear happening with guys like Leonard Floyd now, right? Another seasoned veteran. You want to hear that happening for guys like, who's not out there right now, but Drake Jackson, right? Like those are the guys that would have really benefited from going up against a guy like Trent Williams. I mean, if Nick Bosa is healthy and engaged from the start of the season, we know what he is. He is the top defensive end sack leader in the NFL. So I want to see that. Kenny is funny because I actually talked about like anytime you saw people sharpening blades back in the day, it was the big wheel, the concrete, or like they're rounding that thing out, but it wasn't really metal against metal. But the saying is the saying. So, so I do like it. I do wish that it happened a little bit more, but maybe so that they could get their handful of exchanges, and then that information can trickle down into the rest of the ends. So that's kind of where I am with it. Oh, and by the way, I did want to say this about the Brandon Staley thing really quick. I think Brandon Staley is this generation's Wade Phillips. It goes to a point that Matt was making. A lot of guys go out there and they are stars on the defensive side of the ball or the offensive side of the ball. Then they get this head coaching position and they just don't live up to the hype, right? Wade Phillips was exactly that. Wade Phillips was the man on the defensive side of the ball for his generation. Top 10 almost every single time he was a defensive coordinator. They give him a head coaching position and his teams just failed miserably. Massive disappointment. You can blame it on the Cowboys. You can blame it on whatever you want to blame it on. But they failed as far as when he became a head coach. And as soon as he went back to defensive coordinator, he picked up where he left off and took those teams' defenses back to top 10 status. So I think that's what we're going to get with Joe. Wow. With did I say Joe Staley this whole time?
No. You said Brandon.
Oh, okay. With Brandon Staley.
It's very similar. You say Wade Phillips. The other name that I think of is Vic Fangio, who is highly thought of as a respected defensive coordinator and was just really bad with Denver. I think he had like a 19-30 record or something like that. And there are others like that too. So.
Kansas City.
Yep. Yeah.
Who's the DC in Kansas City? I'm forgetting his name right now.
Steve Spagnuolo,
who the 49ers reportedly try and lure away from Kansas City after the season.
Yeah, he was the coach of the Dolphins, and it just didn't go well there. So
Giants,
too. Yeah. I mean, and then you have a historically great, college coaches who come to the NFL and can't do shit, like Nick Saban and Urban Meyer couldn't do anything. So sometimes you are built for a certain lane, and that's the lane that you need to stick to. And it looks like that potentially Brandon Staley could be that defensive coordinator / secondary coach lane, and that's where he's going to need to stay.
That's right, throwback. He was head coach for the Rams. He was DC for the Giants, and then became head coach for the Rams. And then after that, I think went to Kansas City. Norv Turner. Yep. All right, so that's all for the topics that I have tonight. I do have a chat pack card though. We haven't done these in a while, so let's get our chat pack going. Do we have the? Here we go. Oh. Chat, feel free to answer as well. All right. Tonight's chat pack. Aside from family, friends, or pets, what would be the most difficult thing for you to give up in your life? Aside from family, friends, or pets, what would be the most difficult thing for you to give up in your life?
How specific do we need to be, or can we be pretty broad?
Pretty broad.
Technology. I wouldn't be able to give it like my phone, my video games, my TV. Like, honestly, I don't even know. Like, listen, I told my wife, I was like, if something happens to you and the family, I'm gonna be a curmudgeonly old man that never does fucking shit. But you better believe that I'm gonna be playing video games and watching football and doing all those things. I just think that, you know, technology makes our lives very, very simple, very easy, and also infinitely complicated at the same time. And, you know, it's anything but boring. And, you know, I'm a big time tech head. I build computers. I like, you know, working with that kind of stuff. I love to see the newest and latest innovations in tech. You know, I'm already looking forward to the next iPhone. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get the next Apple Watch. I'm going to get the next this, the next that. NVIDIA released their 4,000 card super series. I bought one of those. You know, it's just tech for me is something that I'm interested in, from the hardware aspect of it to the ability that it gives me to just unwind and kind of take my mind off of things in real life, to, you know, even things as like color composition and scene construction and set design. And there's so many insights that I get from technology. Just, you know, web design. Why does StreamYard cap, you know, even if you get like the highest tier, why does it cap you at 1080? I feel like it has something to do with the fact that it's through a web page rather than a dedicated app or something like that. You know, all these things are really interesting to me. So technology for me, easily the big one.
That's a good one. Mike, you want to go? You want me to go?
I'll go, and you can go last. But Matt, I do have a question for you. With you being as involved in tech and all, how
Sure.
do you feel about this new AI wave? Like just everything being tied into AI.
There are some things that I think that it's really good for, mainly very menial tasks, things that don't require creativity. I think that there are interesting medical aspects for it. Like if you feed, for example, one of the things that's been happening is you take like a CT or MRI of a woman's breast and you run it through like AI medical programs. It detects breast cancer up to 4 years earlier than a human potentially could. And so for those applications, I think it's actually really, really cool. The area that I don't like it for is companies who use it to create assets or creative stuff. So for like movies or things like that, I think that in that regard, it takes an aggregate of everything that has been fed and spits something out that approximates what you're asking it to do, but it's not original. Do you know?
Having
do you
conversations with deceased
So
family
it's like,
members.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's weird. That shit's weird. But I mean, from the fact of like, if you took an AI program and you said, create an art piece in the style of Leonardo da Vinci based off of all of his works, it would produce something that looked like something Leonardo would produce, but there would be no meaning behind it. It's just copying bits and pieces of what you fed it to put something out. I don't think that it's Skynet. I don't think that like the world's going to end because AI decides that humanity sucks or anything like that. Because the way that we have AI now, it's not an emergent intelligence. It's only spitting out things based off of the algorithm that's been programmed into it by human beings. And so from that aspect of it, I don't think that it has that component of being alive. And yeah, no ideas. Original from Kenny 49ers. Our students do it all the time. You know who else does it? I mean, I hope nobody at my work is watching, but we have to do a self-evaluation every year. Bro, I put that shit through an AI program because I'm not wasting my time. Last year, my boss literally gave me feedback based off what I wrote about myself. And I was like, all right, if you motherfuckers don't care, I don't care either. So, however, there is this program that I found today, and I don't want to play any of these right now, but there's this program called Sona AI. And so you can feed it prompts and it will give you like songs. So it'll be like, make a country song about getting indigestion from Taco Bell. And it will write you like a banger ass country song. I don't know if anybody follows YouTube drama, but Keemstar made one about Boogie lying about having cancer, and he made a country song about it, and it's hilarious. But yeah, I think for menial tasks, stuff like spell checking, syntax, things like that, AI for translation, rather than just Google Translate itself, if you run it through an AI program so that it has contextual stuff. I think that would be funny. And to see like a lot of those bullshit jobs disappear, and for us to have even more time on our hands, like we actually need it. But I don't think it's going to replace every job. We are getting pretty close to self-driving cars. That'll be interesting. But yeah, I don't think it's this big, bad, scary thing, but I do think that it has the potential to make us lazier than we are.
So we'll all be those big.
Also, the deep fake thing is terrifying. I just want to say that part of it is pretty
What
scary.
is the deep fake? I keep hearing people talk about what is it?
So somebody could take, so legitimately, because we've done so many shows, somebody could take and run our shows through an AI program and create an entire podcast where we talk and it'll sound exactly like us, but it's not us doing it. Because
and that's why I drink so much.
For real.
That's why. Which mic are we supposed to be using? The sober one or the drunk one? The speech patterns change too much.
Yeah, that's why I had to stop smoking weed. I would smoke weed and go down the YouTube rabbit hole of like quantum physics and AI and shit, and I just get terrified.
Very interesting, man. Very interesting. Mine is a very boring and simple answer. It's football. I watch football year round. I'm sorry, Zach, man, but I just it's what I do. I'm not Catholic, but every time Lent comes around and people say, "Oh, I'm giving up meat. I'm like, who gives a shit about meat? Like, give up something that's like you really do or use all the time. Like, give up something that you're going to be thinking about the first time you realize you want it and you can't have it, right? And if someone were to tell me like, "Oh, I have to give up football for 3 months," even in the off season, if someone were to say you have to give up football for 30 days, like any and all things football related, I would have a very hard time functioning once I got home. And so that's my answer. It seems like low-hanging fruit, but that's just how much I watch football, not just Niner stuff. I just talk about the Niner stuff all the time, but it goes around, for me. It's a very, very big part of my life, for better or worse. I don't know if it's good. When I was young, I used to see the old guys talking about, oh man, sitting around, can't wait to sit down and watch football on Sunday. I'm like, these guys suck. Right. And then I realized I'm becoming that. I am that same exact old guy that I feared becoming. But it wasn't because I had this crazy college career. It's just something that I fell in love with. So, and by the way, it's professional football. It's professional football. Like college football, I watch, but I'm a casual fan of college football, but professional NFL football is very, very big for me. So I'm trying to expand and get into other competitive sports and things like that. And more NBA. I try to get into baseball, golf. I was watching volleyball in the Olympics today. So, little things like that I'm trying to get more into, but it's really tough for me. But football is always on the top of my mind.
Mike was watching them women's volleyball teams right there.
I only watched the men's, USA and Germany. USA took it 3 out of 5, so that's what I was watching today. I did not see, but women's beach volleyball is up there. Women's volleyball is good in general, so I encourage all of you guys to get out there and watch that shit.
Real quick, Mike, I do want to say I love the NFL. NFL is king, and I do like going to games, especially with you guys. I do feel like there's something missing when you go to the games. However, I feel like the atmosphere of college football, man, you wake up early and you go to a tailgate and you're just out there and having a good time. You go to the big house in Michigan or, Happy Valley and at Penn State for like a marquee matchup. I don't think that there's any atmosphere that can match that.
Yeah.
So being there in person, I think I would choose college over the NFL just because I'm so invested in the NFL game. I love the analysis and the replays and being able to see everything super up close that I think is lost in person. But dude, the college football atmosphere is absolutely wild. But in general, I agree with you. NFL is king.
I've never been to a college game because I don't want to be the old guy out there with a bunch of 20-year-olds.
Oh, no, there's old ass dudes out there. It's not just students that go to college football games.
It's the alumni.
Yeah. I mean, you can't listen. There ain't 100,000 students at Michigan going to those games every week. You know what I'm saying?
Touche.
Just to comment on both of your guys, and I'll share mine. Mike, I cannot relate enough. Like literally, even right now, July 30th, when I go to bed tonight, we will put on an old episode of NFL Red Zone because I used to just watch Niner games, but I'm like, you know what? I could just fucking put on Red Zone, and that's like 7 hours of football all day. So we just watch Red Zone to go to bed now. I've realized that YouTube TV auto deletes shit after like so many weeks, and you have to have like the Uber top package in order to save them to your device. I'm not paying for that. I already have like the upgraded package. So I think I'm like all the way up to like week 6 of the Niners season. So I'm a little pissed off at that as it is because all those first 5 games I don't have anymore. But I love football so much. That was going to be my answer. And then Matt, for technology, if it wasn't for technology and football, none of us would even know each other. Like we all met on social media because of football, and we have this friendship now. It's awesome. So with those two gone, I'm going to still go in the technology realm. I'll go a little more specific. And I'm going to go with YouTube. I think if YouTube was taken out of my life, the quality would decrease dramatically, as nerdy as that is to say. Like, women always say, like, I don't get YouTube. Why? YouTube is a male platform. Men fucking love YouTube. And ladies, if you're watching, if your man sends you a YouTube video that is sacred, that is like him letting you know when he's taking a shit, that is a vulnerable time for him. That's something that means a lot to him. Even if it's an hour long, watch the fucking video. Just watch it because clearly it means a lot to him. There's so much. I mean, it's like the fucking Library of Alexandria in modern times. You could literally find anything on YouTube. It was probably a little better a few years ago before they got really heavy on like the censorship crackdown. But it's still good. It's still really good. And if you want to go to like the crazy shit, you can always go to Rumble. Rumble's like, we don't give a fuck. You can post whatever you want here. So YouTube for like the suitable for work stuff, and then Rumble for the NSFW. So it would be YouTube if I had to get rid of if I had to get rid of something that would ruin my shit. It would be YouTube. Thanks, Kenny. Kenny gets it. All right. Any final thoughts here, guys, before we wrap up? Go Niners. Football is back as of Thursday, Hall of Fame game. So cannot wait. And the 49ers first game is 9 days after that. So not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. We'll be back next Wednesday, I believe, to preview that. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I gotta say, listen, throughout training camp, it's kind of weird to see Deebo Samuel wearing number 1. I don't know why. It's just weird to me.
I forget he wore it at South Carolina, but yeah, it is weird.
Yeah, it's a little odd. Who's wearing 19 for the 49ers?
Trent Taylor.
Oh, that's right.
So it's not just weird to you. There was a mic'd up thing where I think it was Jawan Jennings was mic'd up, but they were talking, and someone else was like, every time they say 19, I keep expecting Deebo to go out there, and I got to remember, like, oh, he's 1 now. They were like, well, who's 19? It's like, oh, yeah, that's right. It's Trent. So, it's not just weird to you, man. Even the guys on the roster are saying 19 problems. People are still saying 19 problems, and he's been out of the number. So,
I gotta ask. I gotta shoot Croc a tweet or whatever and see what he thinks of Pearsall wearing 14 as well. I know he's got a thing with numbers.
Mike, let the folks know where to find you. I'm sure they already know, but let them know.
No, guys, head on over to the Patreon page. It's right here at the bottom of the screen, patreon.com/NB9ERS. I appreciate you guys out there. We will be doing a lot more work over there this season, so please make sure you guys get on over there, subscribe. There's different things for every single tier. I believe we have 4 tiers over there now. We did introduce the $1 tier, but here's what you get from every single one of those tiers. Guaranteed bare minimum, you get to watch the games on Sunday. So if you guys don't have Sunday ticket, if you guys aren't subscribed, you don't want to pay that high ticket price, head on over. You get to watch, all 49ers games. Let me be clear with what I'm saying. All right. If you guys are out of the market and you don't feel like paying for that, the $1 tier, the $5 tier, all of them, they all just have extra content. But the $1 tier is for the people who want to specifically watch 49er games every single week, even when I am not around to stream them myself. I have taught my wife how to set up the stream and all that stuff and make sure it's working. She holds me down. So shout out to Mrs. Mike Andrews. She does a phenomenal job.
Which tier gets the feet pics? I'm just kidding.
That is actually on my OnlyFans, but I have stopped doing OnlyFans, so you guys don't have to worry about that anymore.
All right, patreon.com/NB9ERS.
Yes.
And Nothing But Niners on IG as well. Make sure you guys go follow, go subscribe. Without further ado, Matt, please take us out tonight.
Absolutely. Training camp is in full effect, and so are we. We're through the first week and a half or so, and man, Zach, Thursday night, 2 days from now, the Hall of Fame game kicks us off for preseason football. At that point, there's no excuses. It's full go. I'm looking forward to seeing what the 49ers do, both with the contracts that need to get solved and everything else. And we're going to bring you all of that as it happens here. So be with us each and every week. For Mike, for Zach, for myself, thank you as always for joining us. We love having you here. And until next time, go Niners.